Good evening, everyone. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. The time is 6:03 p.m. My name is Charles Gary. I'm Deputy General Counsel at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, also known as the MTA. I've been designated as the hearing officer. Yeah. I've been designated as the hearing officer. Is that good? I've been designated as the hearing officer for this public hearing. Joining us for tonight's hearing in person or on Zoom are other staff members from the MTA and MTA Construction and Development. They include Robert Paley, Director of Transit-Oriented Development, Robert Reichenstein, Director of Transactions, Transit-Oriented Development, Liam Dalton, who is the project CEO for this project, Julia Kurson, Deputy Project Executive for 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2, and sitting next to me on my right is Joseph O'Donnell, who's the Director of Public Affairs for MTA CND. Everyone who wishes to speak at tonight's hearing has signed up in advance through the website provided on the hearing notice or in the sign-up sheet located here at the hearing. If there's anyone present who wishes to speak but has not yet registered, you may do so by visiting the following website, new.mta.info/2023-SASP2-hearing until 6:30 p.m. this evening. This is a public hearing under Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. The topic of tonight's hearing is MTA's proposed acquisition of property interests that will be required in order for MTA and MTA Construction and Development to undertake and complete portions of the work elements in Contract 2, 3, and 4 of Phase 2 2nd Avenue Subway Project, which I'll refer to hereinafter as the project or Contract 2, 3, and 4. The project includes that part of the subway that will be constructed between East 106th Street and 125th Street. The subway tunnels, 3 stations, and related systems for Phase 2 will be constructed under these 4 separate contracts. As I will explain in greater detail later on, under Contract 2, 3, and 4 of Phase 2, MTA requires acquisition of 19 properties in fee and the acquisition of certain partial fee and permanent and temporary easements in additional properties. Under the United States and New York constitutions, the government has the right to acquire private property for public uses, provided that the government pays just compensation for the property in which it acquires. That power is called eminent domain or condemnation. MTA is a New York public authority that was created by the state legislature and has been granted the right to acquire property by condemnation for transportation projects like the 2nd Avenue Subway. The fact that we're holding this public hearing under the eminent domain procedure law tonight does not automatically mean MTA will condemn all of the property interests needed for this stage of the project. MTA hopes to acquire as many property interests as it can through negotiated agreements with property owners. However, MTA simply may not be able to reach agreements with some property owners and will be compelled to acquire those property interests by condemnation. New York law provides many rights and protections for owners whose property interests are acquired by condemnation, including the right to receive just compensation and file a claim for additional compensation. Tonight's hearing is the beginning, not the end of that process. In each instance where an agreement is not reached with a property owner, MTA will provide additional notices and information to the owner prior to starting any formal legal proceeding to condemn the required property interest. Please note that both the Supplemental Environmental Assessment, or SEA, for Phase 2 and the Final Environmental Impact Statement, or FEIS, issued in May 2004 for the full-length 2nd Avenue Subway Project by the Federal Transit Administration, also known as FTA, as well as other information about the project, is available on the MTA's website at http://web.mta.info/capital/SAS_DOCS/EA_phase2.htm. The hearing format. As required under the eminent domain procedure law, this hearing will inform the public about the Second Avenue subway project, particularly the work and property requirements for construction contracts 2, 3, and 4 for phase 2 of the project, review the public use, benefit, and purposes to be served by these contracts and by the proposed property acquisitions, and describe the property's general impact on the environment and surrounding communities. MTA published notice of this public hearing in the New York Daily News from February 20th through the 24th of 2023, and in Spanish in El Diario on February 28th, 2023. MTA also mailed notices of this hearing to affected property owners in the project area, including easement holders and mortgagees. The hearing notices to property owners also contained a map indicating the proposed property interests to be acquired at each addressee's location. MTA also notified public officials of tonight's hearing. This hearing is being recorded and a transcript of the hearing will be made. For those of you who have or wish to submit a written statement, I request, if you have not already submitted such statement, that you may do so by visiting new.mta.info/2023L-SASP2-hearing. Or sending such statement by regular mail addressed to MTA Government and Community Relations, referencing EDPL Second Avenue Subway to Broadway, room D17.140, New York, New York, 10004. I can't move my slides. That's the address on the screen. The hearing notice also provided instruction for members of the public who are blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing, or required translation to contact the public hearing hotline at 646-252-6777 in advance of tonight's public hearing in order for MTA to provide accommodation. CART captioning and American Sign Language interpreters are available at this hearing. To access captioning at the bottom of the screen for Zoom, select CC and you will be able to turn on or enlarge the captions based on your preference. Users will not need to adjust their screens to see ASL. The ground rules for this hearing are as follows. First, I will make my presentation. Then we will call on each person who has registered to speak. I ask that each speaker, for those of you on Zoom, I ask that each speaker, when called upon, allow for approximately 10 seconds for a brief transition where the speaker will be able to turn on their camera and unmute their microphone. We will also keep a record of this hearing open until 5:30 p.m. on March 24th, 2023, for the purpose of receiving any additional written comments. The nature and format of this hearing, as well as time constraints, do not permit me or other project representatives to answer questions raised by public speakers. Upon request, MTA can provide contact information for key personnel through MTA Construction and Development's Community Outreach Team, whom you may contact with your questions after the hearing. I ask that all speakers please limit their remarks to a time period of 3 minutes or less so that all registered speakers may be heard. Keep in mind, the MTA will be accepting written comments until 5:30 p.m. on March 24th, so everyone will have a fair opportunity to have their comments made part of the hearing record. I'd like to spend a few minutes now just to generally describe the project as a whole, and I'll remind you again that this hearing relates to contracts 2, 3, and 4 of phase 2 of this project. Okay. Since the early 1940s, the population of Manhattan's East Side has grown steadily. The growth has severely strained the capacity of the area's streets, highways, buses, and subway lines. The neighborhoods were converted from an industrial use, and the construction of corporate, commercial, and high-rise residential buildings have dramatically increased the East Side's population density. While this development was occurring, the Second Avenue L was taken down in 1942, followed by the Third Avenue L in 1956. This left the Lexington Avenue subway line to solely accommodate the growing East Side population. No new transit facilities were provided to serve the new residential and office buildings that had sprung up. Proposals to build a north-south subway line along Second Avenue date back to 1929, preceding the demolition of those elevated lines. Several detailed plans were proposed in the following decades, The plan developed in the 1960s proposed a two-track subway line from the Bronx to Lower Manhattan. This plan culminated in the actual construction of several tunnel segments. However, construction was suspended in the 1970s due to the city's financial crisis. So currently, the proposed Second Avenue subway, once fully constructed, will be a new two-track, approximately 8.5-mile rail line with 16 new stations extending the length of Manhattan's East Side corridor from a terminal at 125th Street and Lexington Avenue in Harlem to Hanover Square in Lower Manhattan. The new line will make the neighborhoods of the East Side more accessible, not only for those who live there, but to visitors and workers traveling from other parts of New York City as well. Not only will the Second Avenue subway serve existing neighborhoods on the densely developed East Side of Manhattan, it will also support future growth in several areas, including East Harlem, the Lower East Side, and Chinatown. The Second Avenue subway is already partially open. Currently, the northern terminal for the Q train is on Second Avenue and 96th Street. The line runs south to 63rd Street, where it joins the existing Broadway line via an existing tunnel connection to serve express stations along the 7th Avenue and Broadway lines before crossing the Manhattan Bridge into Brooklyn. Passengers traveling to Lower Manhattan on this route can transfer for local service to destinations south of Canal Street. The Instant project, which is the second phase of this Second Avenue subway, will extend the Q service further north in Manhattan to East 125th Street and Lexington Avenue. It will include new stations at Second Avenue and East 106th Street, and at Second Avenue and East 116th Street, and connect the existing and expanded 125th Street, Lexington Avenue 456 station. As a result, passengers traveling between East Harlem and the Upper East Side will be able to reach Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn. Passengers from the Bronx will benefit from free transfers at the Lexington Avenue 456 125th Street station, among others. Phase 2 will also provide transfers to and from Metro North's Harlem 125th Street station. The Second Avenue subway has been designed to follow the public right-of-way within city streets to minimize the need to acquire private property for the project. However, some public and private property acquisitions along the project route are needed to construct and operate the Second Avenue subway. The full Second Avenue subway project has been divided into 4 phases. Phase 1, which was completed, as I mentioned, at the end of 2016, included new stations at 96, 86, and 72nd Street, with an expansion of the existing 63rd Street station. Phase 2 consists of 4 contracts for work at these 3 aforementioned stations, 125th Street, 116th Street, and 106th Street. Phase 2 of the project will include a new tunnel between 106th Street and East 110th Street, rehabilitation and fit out of existing tunnels that were constructed in the 1970s between East 110th Street and East 120th Street, new tunnels under Second Avenue between East 120th Street and East 124th Street, before turning west down East 125th Street to a point, ending at a point between Malcolm X Boulevard and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, and the 3 new stations and related systems. When completed, passenger service will operate from the 125th Street station to the existing 63rd Street station and continue downtown on the existing Broadway line as the Q. Project scope. Contract 2 consists of the construction of the underground tunnels and stations between 115th Street and 2nd Avenue, northward along 2nd Avenue, and then westward along 125th Street between 2nd Avenue and a site west of Malcolm X Boulevard. The work includes the restoration and conversion of an existing 2nd Avenue subway tunnel into a new passenger station at 116th Street. The work on 2nd Avenue will include cut and cover construction at various locations between 115th and 120th Street and at the site near Malcolm X Boulevard. Twin bored tunnels via tunnel boring machine, deep mined caverns and tunnels for the 125th Street station will also take place. The off-street work sites are at the northeast corner of 115th Street, 116th Street, and 118th Street, and the southwest corner of 120th Street. A site on the south side of 125th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues, the southeast corner of Lexington and Park Avenue, and a site west of Malcolm X Boulevard on 125th Street. Contract 3 consists of the construction of the 106th Street station structure and the subway tunnels connecting the two tunnel sections that were constructed in the 1970s. Work will consist of cut and cover construction along 2nd Avenue between 105th and 110th Street, along with 2 station entrances and connections to 2 ancillary building sites. The off-street work sites are at the southeast and northeast corners of 106th Street, the southeast corner of 108th, and the northeast corner of 109th. Contract 4 consists of the construction of 5 ancillary buildings, 4 subway station entrances, and 2 combined entrance ancillary facility buildings, as well as fit out of the stations and tunnels. Work will include the installation of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems for the stations and tunnels, architectural finishes of the stations and ancillary buildings, and the installation of tracks and signal systems. The work locations coincide with the off-street sites I previously mentioned that were utilized for contracts 2 and 3. With respect to the project schedule, while subject to change, at this time, MTA anticipates that construction could start for this work in early 2024, contingent on federal funding. Property acquisition needs. I will now describe the property acquisitions that will be required for the project. The specific location of each property interest that MTA is including in tonight's hearing is also listed in the public hearing notice referenced earlier and in information that was previously mailed to each affected owner. Fee interests. 8 properties are necessary to be acquired in fee for construction of 2 ancillary facilities that support the 106th Street station. These properties include Block 1677, Lot 49, which is currently a 2-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1677, Lot 50, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1677, Lot 51, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1677, Lot 52, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1681, Lot 1, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1681, Lot 2, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1681, Lot 3, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1681, Lot 104, which is currently a 3-story residential building. Four properties are necessary to be acquired in fee for the construction of an ancillary building to support the 116th Street station. These properties include Block 1687, Lot 2, which is currently a 4-story mixed-use residential and commercial building. Block 1687, Lot 1, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1687, Lot 3, which is currently a 4-story mixed residential and commercial building, and Block 1687, Lot 102, which is currently a parking lot. 6 properties are necessary to be acquired in fee for the construction of 2 entrances at the 116th Street station. These properties include Block 1795, Lot 4, which is currently a 3-story mixed residential and commercial building. Blocks 1795, Lot 1, which is currently a 2-story mixed residential and commercial building. Block 1795, Lot 2, which is currently a vacant lot. Block 1795, Lot 3, which is currently a vacant lot. Block 1688, Lot 1, which is currently a 1-story commercial building. Block 1688, Lot 2, which is currently a 2-story commercial building. 1 property is also necessary to be acquired in fee to support tunnel construction along the mid-tunnel curve. This property is Block 1789, Lot 30, which is currently a 2-story residential and commercial. combination of fee interests and easements. For those of you who may not be familiar with the term, an easement is a right to use part of somebody else's property for a stated purpose, such as for a work area or for a right of access. Easements may be either permanent or temporary. A combination of permanent and temporary subsurface easements are needed to support construction of the 106th station ancillary buildings and entrances. And those are at block 1677 lot 1 and block 1677 lot 52. Two permanent easements on block 1678 lot 1 are also required for the 106th Street ancillary buildings. 13 temporary subsurface easements are required to support construction of the ancillary buildings and entrances associated with the 116th Street station. These properties include block 1687 lot 4, block 1687 lot 104, block 1785 lot 22, block 1795 lot 104, block 1796 lot 1, block 1796 lot 2, block 1796 lot 3, block 1796 lot 4, block 1796 lot 51, block 1796 lot 52, block 1796 lot 53, block 1796 lot 54, and block 1796 lot 152. 23 temporary subsurface easements are also required to support construction of the 125th Street Station Cavern, ancillary buildings, and entrances. These properties include block 1909 lot 46, block 1909 lot 1001, 1002, formerly known as lot 41, block 1750, lot 28, formerly known as lot 30, 29, 30, and 44, block 1750, lot 31, block 1750, lot 32, block 1750, lot 34, block 1773, lot 7, block 1773, lot 57, block 1773, lot 58, block 1773, lot 62, block 1774, lot 1, block 1774, lot 5, block 1774, lot 6, block 1774, lot 7, block 1774, lot 8, block 1774, lot 9, block 1774, lot 17, block 1774, lot 20, block 1774, lot 33, block 1774, lots 1001 to 1005, formerly known as lot 30, block 1773, lot 61, block 1749, lot 33. 15 permanent and temporary subsurface easements are also required for the construction of subway tunnels between 120th, 121st Street and the area of 125th Street on 2nd Avenue. These properties include block 1785, lot 29, block 1785, lot 23, block 1785, lot 24, block 1785, lot 25, block 1785, lot 26, block 1785, lot 27, block 1785, lot 28, block 1789, lot 21, block 1789, lot 26, block 1789, lot 27, block 1789, lot 28, block 1789, lot 29, block 1789, lot 34, block 1789, lot 35, and finally, block 1789, lot 36. This concludes my summary of the property interests that MTA will need for the project. Although subject to change, MTA anticipates under the current project schedule that it will need to start acquisition of the various property interests I mentioned for this work by late 2023, and with the temporary and permanent easements following in 2024. MTA will also discuss property acquisition and relocation requirements, benefits, and timeframes with all affected property owners and tenants, and will communicate updated information on scheduling when it becomes available. The time durations for the temporary easements I had just mentioned will likely likely be in the range of 7 to 10 years, although some temporary easements may be in place for a shorter or longer period. Public uses, benefits, and purposes of the project. The Second Avenue subway will provide more flexibility for passengers traveling along the eastern side of Manhattan, where subway service is currently limited to one line, the heavily used Lexington Avenue line, for much of the area, and for all of the area north of 96th Street. The Second Avenue service thus will provide a needed alternative to the Lexington Avenue line in the event of shutdowns to that service due to emergencies or breakdowns. And finally, with a new connection at 125th Street, the project will also improve multimodal regional access to the various East Side neighborhoods from the existing Metro North station at Harlem 125th Street. The project will also create a one-seat ride from East Harlem to the Upper East Side and West Midtown with a connection to the financial district. I'd like to take a moment now to describe the environmental review that has occurred for this project. The Second Avenue subway's environmental review process started in 1995 when MTA New York City Transit began the Manhattan East Side Transit Alternative Study, also known as MESA or MESA. This study, which was sponsored by the FTA, was carried out as a major investment study and a draft environmental impact statement or DEIS. In August of 1999, the MESA DEIS was issued for public review and comment, and a public meeting was held. Comments from the public hearing in response to the DEIS document showed an overwhelming preference among elected officials, community groups, and the general public for a full-length Second Avenue subway from 125th Street to the financial district. In response to this regional consensus, the MTA board allocated funding in its 2000 to 2004 capital program to complete the planning and design and to initiate construction of a full-length Second Avenue subway. In April 2003, the Second Avenue subway supplemental draft environmental impact statement was published. After evaluating all public comments, the SDEIS, FTA, and MTA issued a final environmental impact statement known as the FEIS in April of 2004, which recommended the Second Avenue subway project as the alternative that best satisfied the goals and objectives of the lengthy studies. In July of 2004, FTA issued a record of decision for this project, which was the last step in the federal environmental review process under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. At that time, it was decided to divide the full-length Second Avenue subway into 4 phases. In 2017, MTA began preparation of a supplemental environmental assessment, or SEA, for phase 2. On July 31st, 2018, a public meeting was held to hear comments on the supplemental EA. The FTA issued a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, for phase 2 on November 15, 2018. Additionally, the FTA issued a supplemental environmental assessment reevaluation on August 14, 2020. Together, this allows for the phase 2 project to move forward and be eligible for federal funding. I will now summarize the general environmental impacts of the project. Again, a complete description of the environmental impacts of the project is set forth in the FEIS along with the supplemental EA and was covered at MTA's prior public hearings. For that information, again, I asked you to review the executive summary of the FEIS or the full FEIS, both of which are available on the MTA website. General disruptions associated with street level construction. Construction activities under these contracts will result in unavoidable increases in traffic, truck movements, dust, noise, and vibrations in the areas nearby. Trucks will travel to and from the sites supporting subway tunnel, station cavern, ancillary building, and entrance construction, making deliveries and removing earth and other materials. Certain construction activities could require restricting access to buildings for several hours. In most cases, safe access to buildings, including street-level businesses, will be maintained throughout the construction period, although pedestrian and vehicular access will be altered or restricted by the construction of sidewalk sheds and the removal of parking and travel lanes. The visibility of some businesses will be reduced. To help minimize potential impacts, MTA will make every reasonable effort to maintain access, control dust, noise, and vibration, screen construction activities, control rodents and pests, and minimize other disruptions where practicable. Transportation impacts. A minimum of 4 lanes will be maintained on 2nd Avenue for vehicular traffic adjacent to the work zones by prohibiting curbside parking, pickup and drop-offs, and deliveries, relocating bus stops, and narrowing sidewalks to a minimum width of 7 feet. Partial sidewalk closures as well as lane closures may still be required adjacent to the work sites. In addition to reducing roadway capacity, construction activity will increase truck volumes on the streets and avenues within the project area, which will affect deliveries to and from the construction zones. In addition, construction will generate an increase in the volume of truck traffic throughout the project area for soil removal and materials delivery at the construction sites. MTA will work with the New York City Department of Transportation to implement and monitor a comprehensive traffic mitigation plan for the project. The traffic mitigation plan will be refined as needed to accommodate traveler and community needs while maintaining the safe and efficient construction of the subway in as timely a manner as possible. Socioeconomic impacts. Businesses could be adversely affected by the disruptions associated with construction activities, as I mentioned, such as reduced pedestrian and vehicular access, removal of parking, and reduction in the visibility of some businesses, particularly retail establishments with outdoor activities on the sidewalk. Though temporary, these disruptions could affect the business's revenue streams and could make the area in the vicinity of construction activities less desirable locations while construction is underway. Again, to help mitigate the impacts, MTA will promote high-quality design of sidewalk sheds, such as the addition of windows, better lighting, goods store signage around construction sites. MTA will also coordinate with businesses to address access and delivery issues, provide special loading and unloading areas on nearby side streets to locations where access will be curtailed in front of buildings during construction. In those designated side street areas, parking may be prohibited to allow more reliable deliveries and pickups. MTA will employ an extensive community outreach program throughout construction to keep the affected neighborhoods informed about construction activities taking place. MTA will use the outreach program to work closely with businesses, organizations, community groups, schools, houses of worship, and other organizations to share information about project-related construction activities. Open space impacts. Public parks and open spaces close to construction sites will be adversely affected by the construction activities, resulting in temporary access limitations or construction disturbances, such as increased noise and dust. The MTA will construct light screens, employ the best management practices to control dust, and use specially quieted construction equipment wherever practicable to separate parks from construction activities. Displacement and relocation. The properties that are the subject of this hearing are required to support construction of the 106th, 116th, and 125th Street stations and the operation of phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue subway. For certain properties, businesses and residents who are displaced by these acquisitions may be eligible for relocation benefits and assistance under the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Act, also known as the URA, which is a federal law. MTA and its representatives will provide detailed information on such benefits to those businesses and residents as the project proceeds. Temporary construction easements will also be needed along portions of the tunnel route. Again, all but one of these easements will be below ground, and none will require any displacements. Archaeological resources. Research that was done for the FEIS found that the area along 2nd Avenue and along 125th Street were sensitive for Native American resources at a depth of up to 23 feet below the surface. MTA will perform additional work to determine whether any archaeological resources are actually present and whether those resources are significant and eligible for the state and national register of historic places. Mitigation measures such as data recovery, public interpretation, or additional analysis and curation will be developed and implemented where future work confirms the presence of significant archaeological resources that will be adversely affected by the project. Future steps to be taken to protect archaeological historic resources are set forth in the programmatic agreement for the project that has been executed by the FTA, the State Office of Historic Preservation, and the MTA. A copy of the programmatic agreement is included at the end of the main volume of the FEIS. Air quality. The FEIS analysis concluded that the project's construction activities, including truck trips, congestion, and diversions of existing traffic will not result in significant adverse impacts to air quality. MTA's contractors will be required to follow measures to reduce construction-related air pollution to the maximum extent practicable. The FEIS required an aggressive dust control program that includes dust covers for trucks, water spray misting exposed areas, and using safe chemical dust suppressants to treat and control spoils at construction areas. In addition, the contractor will be required to establish a program to control emissions from blasting, where blasting is used. Also, all diesel engines of 50 horsepower or greater must meet EPA Tier 3 emissions ratings and be retrofitted with a diesel particle filter. Truck fleets working on this or serving the construction sites must also be vehicles making deliveries and removing materials from construction sites will not be permitted to idle for more than 3 minutes unless it is necessary for the construction work itself. Temporary power will be used where practicable in lieu of generators. Solar-powered equipment and electric engines will be used in lieu of diesel and gasoline engines where practicable. Noise and vibration impacts. Airborne noise. Mining operations in rock will use drilling and controlled blasting, and except for some limited locations where vertical blasting may occur, most of the noise will be contained underground, and it is not expected to be discernible. Vertical blasting is blasting that must be performed to create vertical access or ventilation shafts to the street. At locations where vertical blasting will occur, noise from the blasting will be discernible to nearby residents and businesses for a very short period of time. That is the several second duration of the blast itself, but will be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., except in extraordinary circumstances. In general, due to the short duration of these events, average hourly noise levels will not be significantly affected by the blast noise. Noise will also be generated from ground improvement and trucking activities, slurry wall construction, spoils removal at stations and from the tunnels, and other activities. To reduce noise associated with construction, performance standards will be established by MTA and included with contract documents that must be met by all contractors and subcontractors during construction. Prior to construction, ambient noise measurements will be taken at noise-sensitive locations. Once construction begins, 24-hour noise monitoring stations will also be established. These stations will provide MTA with the ability to monitor its contractors, ensure that the performance standards established by MTA are met. Contractors will also be required to develop noise monitoring and reporting protocols to be used during construction to ensure compliance with the performance standards, and will have to obtain certificates of equipment noise compliance from MTA or its designee for all construction equipment employed throughout the project. Ultimately, at the time of construction, MTA's contractors will be able to select from a range of noise abatement measures to ensure that construction noise does not exceed performance standards. Ground-borne noise and vibration. Construction will result in varying degrees of ground vibration, depending on the stage of construction, the equipment and construction methods employed, and the distance from the construction to buildings and other vibration-sensitive structures. Due to the close proximity of sensitive receptors, vibration levels during a large portion of the period of construction will be perceptible. MTA will implement a rigorous program of special measures to minimize potential impacts to uses such as hospitals and other medical facilities, and structures such as historic buildings that are sensitive to vibration levels. Construction protection plans, or CPPs, will be developed for phase 2 contracts that will include measures to protect built and archaeological properties prior to and during construction. The CPPs will outline the specific requirements for pre-construction surveys, vibration monitoring and thresholds, and crack and settlement monitoring to ensure historically built properties are protected during construction. Contaminated materials impacts. During construction, there is a potential that contaminated soil, soil gas, or groundwater could be uncovered, either in locations where research indicated a potential problem or in other unexpected locations. Preventative measures will be undertaken to protect the safety of the public, community residents, and construction workers, as well as transit workers and the larger environment where the preliminary investigation has indicated that construction has the potential to encounter contaminated materials. These include further investigations to better determine the nature and extent of contamination in areas where the project might encounter it, requirements that contractors perform additional borings before excavation for review and approval by the MTA, and prescribed construction measures to manage contaminated materials during construction. Work will be coordinated with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation as appropriate and in accordance with applicable requirements. Property acquisition. With respect to the property acquisitions that I had discussed earlier, within 90 days from the conclusion of this hearing, which is 90 days from March 24th, 2023, the MTA board will make its determination and findings concerning the proposed acquisition of the property interests I have described here at tonight's hearing. MTA will publish a synopsis of the determination and findings and will provide a copy of the full determination and findings free of charge upon written request. MTA will also mail copies of the determination and findings to all property owners affected by the project, including mortgagees. In addition, and upon request, a copy of the record of this hearing will be available for examination without charge. In the near future, MTA anticipates making written offers of compensation to each property owner with a compensable interest in the properties to be acquired. Where offers are made, the offers will represent 100% of MTA's highest approved appraisal for that property interest. In accordance with the eminent domain procedure law, each property owner will have the option of accepting the offer as payment in full or accepting the offer as an advance payment, reserving its rights to seek additional sums through court proceedings. This concludes my prepared statement. I thank you for your patience in sitting through it. I will now turn the hearing over to Joe O'Donnell, MTA Construction Development's Director of Public Affairs.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. This is the public comment period of the evening. So I'm going to ask everybody, in order to permit registered speakers the opportunity to speak before it gets too late, we ask you to limit your remarks to a time limit of 3 minutes. We ask that each speaker participating virtually, once your name is called, you allow 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will then be able to turn on their camera and unmute their microphone. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. In the event that your name is called and you are not present, we will call your name again at the end of the list of pre-registered speakers. When you begin speaking, please provide your name and any affiliation you wish to announce so that we have it for the record. In fairness to everybody, we're going to toggle tonight between both our virtual and in-person guests. So we're going to get things started tonight with Ann Katamani from Assembly Member Gibbs's office, who's here with us tonight virtually. Ann Katamani. Okay, moving along, we'll come back to Ann. For those of you in person, we ask that if you are able, please come up to the mic here at the front at the podium. If you have mobility issues and it is more convenient, we will have someone walking around with a mic as well so that you could use the microphone to enter your comment into public record. The next speaker will be Christopher Dobbins.
It's Chris Dobbins, and I work for REACT for Environmental Justice, a Harlem-based organization that has been working for the past 35 years to address the environmental and climate justice issues that impact communities in northern Manhattan. I'm here today because REACT, after organizing a coalition of more than 40 East Harlem community groups, New York City departments and agencies, and elected officials, published a set of community-driven recommendations on how the Second Avenue subway extension could serve as an opportunity to transform the East 125th Street corridor into an environmentally and economically sustainable area. We have since met with many city, state, and federal agencies and elected officials, including the MTA. And we have two priorities we'd like to see from the MTA as part of the community recommendations for the Second Avenue subway extension. First, we'd like to see a transit hub that links the new Second Avenue subway station and the existing Metro North station at Park and 125th. We're not asking for anything as extravagant as that Fulton Street station downtown. We'd just like to see the new underground Second Avenue subway mezzanine connect directly to the existing Metro North station so that riders do not have to navigate the busy intersection above ground, especially in inclement weather. We're not asking you to go the extra mile for East Harlem, just an extra 300 feet, give or take. Second, as part of the transit hub, which centers on the street level Uptown Grand Central plazas under the viaduct south of 125th Street and north of 124th Street, we would like to see sound dampening measures, improved lighting, and a working restroom at the plaza there. Simply designating it a transit hub does not make it so, especially since the public spaces are currently unusable as is. REACT attended a walkthrough led by Congressman Espaillat earlier this year. And as you may recall, we literally had to cross the street because we could not hear each other speak while standing in the plaza. That has to change. These plazas need to be usable spaces. Thank you for your time and for listening to our recommendations.
Thank you much. The next speaker joining virtually is Deborah Greif. Deborah Greif.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My concern is that when you were building the first phase of the Second Avenue subway, you had many blocks where you were constructing that were not made accessible for people to be able to cross the streets who have mobility devices. I would like you to make sure this time when you're building that you have correct pedal ramps and ramps for people to get on and off the sidewalk. It's very dangerous for us and it's very painful. It hurts if you don't have an appropriate pedal ramp for a person to get off and onto the sidewalk. My other concern is that I hope you make sure you have more than one elevator and if possible, ramp some of the new stations so that if the elevator's not working, persons with disabilities like myself who use mobility devices can get on and off and in, out of the station or in, or and also make the transfer when we want to go to Metro North. The also, while you're at it, please fix the elevator system at 125th for the 4, 5, and 6. It is impossible for persons with disabilities to get on, and since you will have connections, I hope you can fix that in the future. My biggest concern is that as you're building all these stations, to make them really accessible and easy for a person with whatever form of disability they have, they'll be able to get in and out of stations. I also hope that while you're doing constructions, you remember that we need true accessibility so we can get on and off the sidewalks and also to get to the buses. And also, I'm glad you're thinking about the air quality because so many people in this city, including myself, have respiratory disease and we need to be able to breathe. I hope to see the Second Avenue subway built on time or maybe early. And I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker joining us virtually is Christopher Grave.
When she talks, there's no audio. When he talks, there's audio. So the audio coming from Zoom isn't. Yeah. Speakers.
Christopher Grave, please unmute yourself. All right, we'll come back to Christopher. Joining us in person is William Stanford. Oh, sorry, we have Christopher back? Okay. Christopher, please go ahead. Christopher, please unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Sorry. When you guys double mute me. Either way, good evening. As I said before, Ms. Greif, who said already part of my comments, I thank her. But also remind that when we do this construction, it is very important that every senior and a person with a disability is getting, making sure they're crossing the street. We got to make sure that substitute signages are telling them which way to go. So please, let's make sure the safety is very important. Also, I hope that when we do build these elevators or ramps, because ramps do not break down, we make sure it's so ADA accessible that signages and the future of ADA accessibilities helps every person to get on and off the train and get to the street level safely. But when we do these constructions, we need to make sure the signages, substitute panty ramps, are making sure they're all getting across the street safely and no one can get hurt. So let's please make sure we do that for the near future. As the Q train I use going up to 96th Street, I cannot wait to go to 125th Street, and then I can even maybe transfer to the Metro North connection. So I hope we can do that as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your comment. Now joining us in person is William Stanford Jr.
I have many concerns. Again, the MTA head who could pass for Harrison Ford and David Letterman with a bigger nose and a smaller head no-showed. Why? Is there any particular reason why he no-showed? Is there any particular why he can't get off his ass and attend these public hearings he's holding? This is getting ridiculous with him. It's 4 public hearings in the last 13 months. We picked a bad site to hold this public hearing. The closest station to this building is 110th Street, which is served by local trains only and less ridership, which has no downtown uptown transfer, which is wheelchair accessible. We should have held this public hearing at a site near 125th Street, which has a downtown uptown transfer, which is served by express local trains in addition to more ridership, which is also wheelchair accessible. It is regarding this building, the one actually site is wheelchair accessible, the wheelchair accessible entrance on Second Avenue between 1 and 1 Street. Consider, apparently you didn't consider that. You're picking bad places to hold these public hearings, and that's not helping us. Okay? If the schedule starts at 6 p.m., speaker registration starts at 5 p.m., not 5:30. And you, my friend, when you make speeches, you need to limit them. You almost put me to sleep. Okay? You told me you just told me a bedtime story. I just want to I want to thank you for telling me that bedtime story. But if you feel necessary to tell me a bedtime, put me to sleep, you think it's possible you can tell me a real bedtime story, not an unofficial bedtime story? Because if you had kept on talking, if you continued talking, I would have been knocked out. Okay, I'm not saying you can't make us sleep, but you can't put us to sleep. Okay, that's not helping us. You put us to sleep, we can't testify. You need to limit your speeches. You continue talking, you cut into our time. You can't cut into our time. This is supposed to be for us, not for you. I know someone else who did that years ago, and I asked them, does the law require you to put us to sleep? And also, regardless of second, I feel it's the second avenue, it's the state. Second, the lesson has, take under the 456. That state already has 2 guns. We have these bills transfer 141st Street to be second and Park Avenues, being second, third, less than Park Avenues. One of these two down. These people are set down. Thank you, Mr. Stanford. That concludes the time. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up is Mr. Joseph Morales.
Okay, one is round two.
Is that a no? No. It's a question. There's an echo. There's an echo.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Joseph. I want MTA to ensure that they consider the impact of construction developments
Don't touch this.
of the buildings in the community, including the school's Phoenix campus. Studies show that the impacts of tunnel boring machines can generate vibrations that can lead to damages of buildings and disturb building patrons or interfere with the use of construction equipment. Given the sheer density of NYCHA buildings and schools, including this campus of over 1,000 students, this can have a ripple effect on quality of life for many residents if not mitigated. Also, the MTA should ensure that they have cost-friendly options to obtain the necessary analytical models, as well as the expertise to handle the issues that may arise, such as the calibration of the models, which may require extensive experimental data and the need to determine when different machines may be needed in different geotechnical contexts for the purposes of building the tunnels. This may become prevalent in a place like East Harlem, given the number of various underground utilities, as well as the variety of land uses that exist, as previously mentioned. The MTA should also attempt to avoid spending as much as it had on phase 1 of the 2nd Avenue subway in regards to outside contractors and design firms. Try to avoid scenarios where the MTA spends, in this case, the MTA spent billions, according to an NYU report, by the way, on contractors and stuff. We need to make sure we avoid scenarios where the MTA spends more money than it needs to because they have a design build contract that loads so much responsibility to a private contractor that they want more money for the project. I understand in many cases this is better than the previous model of design bid build, as I've heard Jado Lieber say at some of the board meetings, because when you have a single point of contact, it's just easier for the sake of project management if something gets delayed than having multiple points of contact. But we need to make sure that this the risks of this do not wind up outweighing the benefits, especially with the number of complaints with phase 1 in regards to cost. Lastly, which has already been mentioned, make sure to economically support small businesses that make up the fabric of East Harlem that may be significantly impacted by construction. And like you guys are doing in Soho, in the basketball court that has been taken over as part of the 8th Avenue CBTC project, any open space or parks that need to be altered or broken into as part of the project, please make sure you renovate them to be better than they were prior to construction. I know I said a lot. Thank you for your time.
Comments? The next speaker joining us this evening is Louis Bailey, virtually. Mr. Bailey.
Good evening. My name is Louis Bailey. I'm the manager of membership and organizing at We Act for Environmental Justice. Along with my colleague, Chris Dobbins, I want to say thank you for allowing us to speak. We Act, as Christopher mentioned, is a 35-year organization that works in the catchment area of Northern Manhattan, which consists of 600,000 residents. We operate through the theory of change, organizing, advocacy, and policymaking. This Second Avenue project needs to make sure or ensures that community residents are a part of this conversation, not putting a flyer in a magazine, but actual outreach to the community in multiple languages for at least 2 or 3 weeks prior to when things start. That is the only way you get true engagement from the community. Putting it in a magazine once or twice does not get to everybody. You also should enlist the help of organizations within the East Harlem community, as well as We Act, into getting that message out. But just putting it into a paper regarding this hearing was definitely not enough. That is not going to get it done. So make sure these options, I do like the fact that it's in person. I do like the fact that there's a virtual option, but more people need to be there, and it has to be more appointments so people can come, not just today, because I can see from the video, a lot of people are not there. The second, I want to talk about the environmental front. I think the MTA needs to make sure that there's a report monthly that goes out to the community that assesses the environmental changes over time. Trucks, cars, and everything come off the Triborough on a daily basis, all day long. So that's increased pollution into the community coming off to that bridge. So a monthly report should go out to the community boards, to the stakeholders, to businesses that says in January, this is what the environmental impact was, but in February, it has gone up, and they need to mitigate those issues as they go forward. I just think monitoring is going to be key for this project as you are digging and opening up spaces. And as Chris said, the connection to the Metro North is key. We should have community input of what that center will look like. We don't want a Grand Central Station. We don't want Oculus. We want something that is truly inspired by the community residents of East Harlem. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Wilson Prive, joining us in person.
Should I start?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, hi. My name's Wilson Prive. I'm a math major at Brooklyn Technical High School, and I hope to be as constructive as I can today. I had two main concerns about the Second Avenue subway. The first one was how service is going to be adequately provided to this new line. The Second Avenue subway functions as a branch of the BMT Broadway line, and currently is served by the Q train about every 6 minutes with supplemental N train service during peak hours. The 3 new stations are inevitably going to increase ridership, and the FTA's own report suggests that a train should be running about every 3 to 4 minutes to adequately serve Second Avenue subway, but all the MTA proposals say only the Q train should run up there. But with current service patterns, the Q train can't really be increased. The only way I could see this working would be if the MTA ran all Broadway express trains up Second Avenue subway and all Broadway local trains via the 60th Street Tunnel into Queens. However, that would cost Astoria riders access to Broadway express services and just a general reduction in the number of trains per hour. So the MTA must address how it's actually going to provide the service up this new $8 billion line. Because yeah, it's going to affect people beyond just those who use Second Avenue subway. My second concern has to do with provisions. One thing I was frankly disappointed by with phase one of the Second Avenue subway was the relative lack of provisions for future expansion to the rest of the subway system. When the 6th Avenue line was built in 1940, the most recent major north-south subway line in Manhattan, it wasn't built with express tracks, but express tracks have since been added. We have the Christie Street connection, we have the 63rd Street tunnel, and that was because planners had foresight to see what the needs of transit might be in 50 years after the line was built. And with Second Avenue subway, there are two main provisions I believe must be included. Firstly, are tail tracks that would allow the Second Avenue subway to extend into the Bronx. When the 3rd Avenue elevated was taken down in the 1970s, it was taken down under the premise it would eventually be replaced by the Second Avenue subway, and to not include that would be very just wrong in my view. My second thing would be to include provisions so a pair of express tubes could be added under the existing line segment, because my generation doesn't want to be stuck trying to build a First Avenue subway to fix the problems to fix the constrained 2-track Second Avenue subway. Yeah, that's really everything I wanted to say. Thank you for your time, and I hope this was insightful.
Thank you for your commentary. Next up is Miss Lillian Bent.
Good evening. As you said, my name is Lillian Bent, and I am a resident of Franklin Plaza Apartments. Our development is from 106 to 108th Street, from 3rd to 1st Avenue. The planned stop on 106th Street is directly on the corner of our property, and we are quite concerned about several things. While this is not on 106th Street, we have 2 gas heating plants on 2nd Avenue, one at 2085 and one at 2086. We are very concerned about vibrations and the impact on those power plants. We are also concerned about vibrations and blasting on our apartment buildings. Our complex was built in 1961. The other thing we are very concerned about is the air quality control, preventing soot and particles from clogging our air conditioners and entering our apartments. There are many windows facing 2nd Avenue and 106th Street and 108th Street where you are planning on digging. And safety of our residents while navigating around the construction site and while crossing the avenues and the streets. During an upgrade of the 2nd Avenue bus stop on the northwest corner about 5 to 8 years ago, our residents were being forced to cross 106th Street and 2nd Avenue in the middle of 106th Street while traffic was flowing. And on 107th Street, there is no cross street. And we were dodging cars because nobody was honoring the red light. We are a community of 5,000 people, 1,635 apartments. 40% of us are senior citizens. So navigating across the streets is something that we like to do safely. We are also concerned about security at the construction site during the hours of work and after hours. We are concerned about our security as well as residents right there. I thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much. Joining us next virtually is Bridget Ruffalo, and then we will try to go back to Ann Katamani. So Bridget Ruffalo, please unmute and turn on your camera.
Good afternoon. I never signed up to speak. Good afternoon. I never signed up to speak, so you can go to the next person.
Thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Next is Ann Katamani. Okay, coming back locally here, we are going to go next to Eliyahu Nir, followed by Foresta Nir.
Appreciate the improvement of our transportation system. I'm here to speak about specifically the addresses of 111, 113, 125th Street, block 1774, lot 7 and 8, where you mentioned that there would be temporary easements on the building for 7 to 10 years. Since you started this construction, there were barricades put in front of these two buildings, storing construction material and different equipments. As a result of these barricades, the area in front of these two buildings became a haven for drug dealers, people using your equipment as a cover for public bathrooms. Rats are rampant. Multiple complaints from us to the police department and to the city were useless, and nothing has been done so far. As a result of this, the area, specifically in front of these two buildings, have become unsafe. Security of tenants and the businesses, the two stores that are in these buildings have been compromised, and we're very concerned. We need to know what you're gonna do going forward about these issues, and we need to know exactly what the easements mean for this location, this specific location. We have lost, as a result of this construction, tremendous amount of income from the buildings. Tenants moving out, not wanting to pay rent, concerned about their security. I want to know if there is going to be any compensation regarding what's happening and going forward. I hope that you will address these issues and that you can move on forward safely with cleaning up the area and ensuring us about when you go forward with your project, which has been going on since 2018 in front of these two buildings, whether or not you plan to address these issues and or make compensations to the business owners and the building owners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Neer, are you speaking as well? Yeah.
My name is Eliyahu Nir, and I have a few more to add to my wife. She said, when we apply to Department of Building for permit or any work, the first thing they ask, make sure the tenant be safe, they don't bother them. And you, since you came to the 125th Street, you destroyed it, completely destroyed. You leave material on the street for months for nothing. Garbage collected rather than going in, the inspector come and give us a violation. It's your fault, not ours. You put barricade, the tenant cannot put, the cooker cannot put the garbage out. So you gotta go to the neighbor. You go to the neighbor scream. You got to organize this so it be done right. I'm very angry, so I can't talk anymore.
Thank you, sir. Next up virtually is Gustavo Rosado, followed locally by Leslie Colon. Mr. Gustavo Rosado, please unmute and turn your camera on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Gustavo Rosado, and today I'm representing the Acacia Network and its affiliate, El Barrio's Operation Fight Back. We are not-for-profit organizations that provide a wide variety of community services to underprivileged neighborhoods. In today's case, we're addressing a building that's directly affected, one of ours, 260 East 125th Street, also known to us as 2425 Second Avenue, because the actual residential entrance of the building is on Second Avenue. We also have not on the list 2415, 2411, and 2405 Second Avenue. We're just a block away, so we just still have some concerns with those in terms of your excavation and digging phase that may possibly affect those buildings also. When we originally, the building in effect right now has 12 affordable housing units and 3 small businesses. When we first received the news of the Second Avenue subway and MTA moving forward on this phase, it came with mixed emotions. And on one hand, we were happy that the East Harlem community would be having additional accessibility to new transportation services. And generally, that would be a good thing. On the other hand, we were concerned on the effects that this project would have, this phase would have on our affordable housing and the small businesses at that building. We experienced on a firsthand basis with buildings that we had at 1924 and 1932 Second Avenue, between 99th Street and 100th Street and Second Avenue, when digging was taking place in that section, when that phase of the subway, we experienced an exorbitant explosion of rat infestation in our buildings. The blasting, was making our buildings shake, where afterwards we found cracks in our facade, and the constant vibration was creating possibly other issues that we were having with plumbing problems. These buildings are old law tenement buildings, so they're not really made to withstand that type of constant vibration. And so we were concerned that because our building is right on the corner of 125th Street and Second Avenue, that we would experience similar effects. And we're hoping that the MTA would help us as a not-for-profit to address these conditions, whether they be with cracks in the buildings, extermination, the interference with the small businesses. And we're hoping that this is just not an item on your checklist, public hearing held. And then we'd like for effective and continuous communication be.
Mr. Rosado, please conclude your remarks.
That will be done.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next up locally is Leslie Colon, followed by Aaron Frome.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Leslie Colon, board member of Franklin Plaza Apartments. I want to share with you some key points as to why I'm totally against the eminent domain on 102nd, 108th Street and 2nd Avenue. There is a gas plant right there, as Ms. Bent presented to you. It's above ground and the rest of it is underground. Many years ago, MTA came to Franklin Plaza and suggested to put a train station exit behind 2086. It was an empty spot and it would have been nice to have it done. Now going forward, we utilize the airspace, the empty space there, to put a gas heating plant at that location. By putting a train station there, what is to say in the world that we live in with the mental health people to put a bomb there and run in the train station? Okay, 9 years ago yesterday, on 117 and Park Avenue, there was a gas leak there and it leveled the whole building. 11 people died at that location. What is to say that's going to happen here when you're drilling right by the gas heating plant of 2086? There are alternative exits and entrances that you can put in that location. The southeast corner of 105th and 2nd Avenue is an empty lot. You can use that as a train station exit. If you're going to impose eminent domain on 2nd Avenue between 108 and 109th Street, there is a parking lot. That location you have on your eminent domain listing, you can put the ventilation system like you have on 72nd Street with an exit there. There is no reason to be taking the area of 108th Street, that southeast corner, to put an exit there. The residents of 2086th Street are senior residents. A lot of windows are going to be exposed to all the construction, the dust, the rats, the roaches, and any other element that is going to be exposing these people to their quality of life, and also causing people to have respiratory problems in addition to all of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cologne. Next up is Aaron Frome, and then we'll go virtually to Miss Edith Borromeo.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak for the 3 minutes. I have 3 parcels which you have identified for permanent taking, and in at least one on your sheets here, and then it seems you've split it in half and only want to take the middle parcel. What I request for perhaps for everyone here that's permanent taking, that you expedite this process. I'm paying now $60,000 a year in real estate taxes, and I have to know what to do with the property. And let alone if you're taking in the middle, it's not right to hold us all in abeyance and say, we'll talk to you in a year from now. So I request that whatever you intend to do, even 90 days is a lot for all of us here, especially since we're paying taxes and don't know exactly how we could handle that property. So my request is that you expedite it as quickly as you can, whether appraisals and offers or what have you, so we know how we can handle our own property. Thank you.
Thank you. Joining us virtually is Miss Edith Borromeo, and then we'll be back here in the room with Mr. Stephen DeWitt. So Ms. Borromeo, please unmute and turn your camera on.
Here. I didn't sign up to make a comment. I'm just listening.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. So we're going to come back here locally to Mr. Stephen DeWitt. And then we'll follow that up with Mr. Hank Williams.
Thank you. I'm a resident of East Harlem on 104. And just wanted to put on the record concern looking forward into the future, 20, 25, even 50 years. Harlem Creek runs right through, or it once did run right through 107, 108, that roughly that area. The whole area that East Harlem was built on is all former wetlands. You know, we know the news of Tippett's Creek being daylighted north, and the possibility of one day daylighting even a part of Harlem Creek to improve the quality of life in East Harlem. I would like to hopefully make sure that your plans would at least try to accommodate parts of that. I know that the drilling and the lines would go directly through the former creek bed of that, and if there's any possibility of being able to accommodate for some type of daylighting in that area, I think the future residents would appreciate that you had the forethought to include that as part of your future planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For those of you who are joining us virtually, if you signed up to speak but logged on with a name different than that which you registered to speak, we would not have acknowledged that you were here this evening. So please put the name that you intended to speak under in the chat. We are now going to turn back here locally because the remainder of our speakers are here locally. When I run through these names, I'm then going to go through a list of names who had previously registered to speak in the event that someone came in this evening without stopping at the front desk to acknowledge or check in. So I'm going to run through the rest of the names of the folks who have in fact checked in, and then we'll go through the rest of the list out of diligence. So Mr. Hank Williams, followed by Nina Saxon. Is Mr. Williams no longer here or wishing to speak? Well, let us get through the list. Nina Saxon.
Me. Good evening. My name is Nina Saxon. I am the Tenant Association President at Carver Housing. I want to talk to the MTA with a couple of concerns, but one that's really major for me. As you do know, East Harlem has a melting pot of niche developments all through the area. We have one of the biggest concentrations in the nation. And when this train is going to be built, I'm very concerned about the dust quality. And I'm going to tell you why. We have issues with asthma, as well as diabetes, other underlying conditions that senior citizens along that area, in just by the air quality alone. I need the MTA to really step up and to do a dust study, along with an air quality study and an environmental feasibility study, to make sure that the residents here in East Harlem is safe. That to me is one of the biggest issues that I think that we need to really look at, especially since we were dealing with COVID issues and people dealing with that are just coming back. And with that, I'm going to leave you with a homework assignment. We have a lot of elected officials that's involved with this that talk about the Second Avenue subway. We have a lot of activists that talk about the Second Avenue subway. We even have Community Board 11 that's talking about the Second Avenue subway. I need MTA to put together a community advisory board of all different people that's in this community about the local jobs, about the quality study, and about keeping this community involved. It needs to be in different languages. It needs to be in English. It needs to be in Spanish. It needs to be in Chinese. It needs to be in languages that built this community. And this community, the workers, should also look like us. Thank you so much. My name is Nina Saxon, and I am the president of Carver Housing. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, Ms. Saxon. Next up, we have Alberto Crespo.
I just want to say I think that this is a great project that's being obviously implemented.
thankful that we're able to improve the transportation system for New York City and also for our community. But as a property owner and a business owner, I just have some concerns that I would like to have addressed by the MTA. Just pushing for greater communication and a true partnership with homeowners, property owners who are obviously a big part of this community, and would like to know if, or would like to see the MTA truly work with them and us to sustain our business. There will be impacts, obviously, as you mentioned, with the reduction of the sidewalks and the traffic, and just to help most property owners stay afloat, whether it be by educating them on how to maintain their business, different methods, whether it be online or how to mediate this impact. Or more so also with property owners, like one of the other gentlemen mentioned, the taxes. How is that going to affect? What impacts is that going to have on us? How are you going to help with that? Will it be some type of property tax abatement during the easement and beyond? Because there will be impacts to the community and most obviously property owners and business owners throughout this entire time frame, and obviously after that, as we try to recover from the great thing that's happening, but obviously it's going to impact the community. We want to make sure that those who are here are able to remain here. If this project is such a positive impact on the community, it would be sad to see business owners and property owners be forced out and not be able to take advantage and appreciate what great thing the MTA is doing. And also future employment opportunities that this is going to impact, and just also increase better communication with property owners. I did meet with one of the representatives today who said he was going to be able to help me. We had met before. You guys had stopped by my business previously, but don't really understand what this temporary easement means from a financial perspective, other than MTA is going to take over my property and affect my business while this is happening. So really ask for increased partnership and truly support the community, business owners, residents, and property owners.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So going back to the top of the list of folks that would previously registered to speak, Marina Ortiz, are you here this evening and still like to speak? Valles Kella? Christopher Davids. Pilar de Jesus.
Good evening. My name is Pilar de Jesus. I'm a shareholder at Franklin Plaza. I'm also an activist, AKA Pilar La Problema. And I mostly wanted to get a lot of this information on the record. I think some of it was said. And I also want to note that my assembly member, Eddie Gibbs, also supports what I am about to say. I just got off the phone with him, letting him know that Ann is not here. But my concerns are, a lot of my concerns are, and I have a lot to say for Espaillat's office and the MTA. I think we need to really pay attention of the environmental issues that this is going to bring our community. We are already being impacted in a negative way. Our mental health and our stability, our health has been depleting for many years. I don't really understand why we have to go and continue to destroy the environment for 3 subway stops. We are not in a train desert. The last time I checked, We have a good accessibility to train station. Yes, we could be better with the accessibility with elevators, but that's a problem with a majority of your train stations in the city, in the state, in the city. People like the G line, they need some help when it comes to their transportations. I'm quite curious what's happening with our federal government representative and wanting to push this forward, knowing environmentally this is a problem, and the MTA, as far as I understand, has not done an environmental impact study. Yes, you've done supplemental assessments, but you're not taking into consideration like the things that Ms. Bent mentioned and Ms. Cologne mentioned around our boiler environment, nitrogen development. If we have money for infrastructure, maybe our Congressman Espaillat should think about putting those resources to the nitrogen development that never seems to have money for their improvements of quality of life. So now we're going to continue to destroy the quality of life of what this predominantly neighborhood is Black and Latino. So if we continue to be slaves to this government and agencies like this, we're not hearing us. I hear all that this community wants it. We need it. We got the 4, the 5, the 6, the 101, the 102, the 103, the M15, the M60. We're not in a train desert. We got Metro North. We could even walk if we really wanted to. This is not for us. I'm quite really curious why people are pushing this. Like, I've been watching a lot of mafia movies and seeing, like, you know, when it gets deals with constructions and projects like this, you know, maybe it's beneficial for the cronies who are going to make a lot of money off of this $34 billion deal. We got a serious housing pandemic. If that's what we need the money to go towards, not more money for trains, when you also have a sugar load of train lines and issues already that y'all have not addressed, use that money for this. But environmentally, this is a problem. And I just wanted on the record that you've not done an environmental impact study since early 2000s. Don't quote me on this, but it was like 2009 or 2004, something like that. We're in 2023. We have rezoning. We got flood issues. It's a whole environmental impact. This planet is under attack.
Ms. De Jesus, you have to wrap up your remarks. Thank you. Thank you. Is Gwendolyn Romano with us tonight? No? William Glover? Brian Jasper? Sonia Gabini? Edward Tadros? Philip Barr? Yvonne Noel? That concludes our registered speakers for this evening. Sir, did you have a remark you wanted to put on the record?
Sir, you're welcome to speak, but we also just need your name, phone number, and email address. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah.
Where the 108 entrance was. Can't hear me? I'm sorry. Hello? Is that better? All right. I live on 107 and 2nd, 2086, the same building as us in Cologne. I mean, I work for the city, so I know how the process goes with everything. But my main concern is when the train station is done, are we still going to get the same thing as 96th Street, 24-hour maintenance, a policeman there at all times? Is it going to be somewhere where the homelessness cannot live and dwell? Because at the end of the day, that's what 103rd Street in Lexington is. That's what 110th Street in Lexington is. At the say also, 2nd Avenue is a populated area where people just walk and they feel safe. It has a bike lane, it has everything else. I just want to make sure, are we going to get the same thing? Like, is it going to be clean all the time, or is this going to be something that is going to be forgotten about once it's done? Because there's going to be 3 other stations. That's my question. I'll give it to the people.
Yeah. Please, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes our public speaking portion of the evening. We've gone through all the registered speakers, both virtually and in person. Charles, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. If there's no additional public speakers, I'll just now conclude this portion of the public. Yeah, we just need your name and contact information in the back corner.
I'm Howard Bond. I'm 1681 Lot 3. I'm a little sad because I've been living in the building for 51 years, and I still live in the building for 51 years. And about 18 years ago, I wanted to pass it down to my daughter. You know, I put a will and all that, and she was supposed to inherit it. And I am sad about the Second Avenue line. You know, I've been in this neighborhood. I went to school here. Went to school across the street, St. Anne's, 99, 45, you know, so I've been here 51 years. And I'm just sad that, you know, I'm unfortunately, I have to accept it because it's eminent domain. So, you know, I'm sad and angry. So I just wanted to say that, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So this concludes this portion of the public hearing. As I mentioned at the outset of the hearing, this hearing will be kept open until 5:30 p.m. on March 24th for the receipt of additional written statements. Even if you've spoken tonight, you can still feel free to submit, you know, supplemental statement in writing. Written statements, again, can be submitted through the MTA website, listed on the hearing notice that I mentioned earlier, or by regular mail. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.